help me put together the structure and, and to shape our panels. And this, we have Margaret Catley-Carlson, who has been a member of the Council of Advisors and associated with the World Food Prize longer than me, and Dr. Gordon Conway, also from our Council of Advisors, and my friend Mahmoud Solh is here, and I've just met Ambassador Patricia Haslach, but so delighted that she's here, and as well as Monica Maigari from this Oxfam Food Hero. So I'm going to, now we're going to have a presentation by Dr. Solh, who was in Aleppo and was the man who had the research under fire, and to introduce him, my good friend and Council of Advisors member, Maggie Catley-Carlson.
Thank you very much. Well, that was quite a roller coaster ride, and now we have to switch to a case study in the real world. Mahmoud has 15 minutes, and I am supposed to introduce him. So I thought, well, you know, he's a very eminent person. If I take 10 minutes to introduce him, to give you a full idea, that'll give him 5. He didn't think that was a very good idea, so I'm going to give you a very quick introduction of a very eminent person. We've had a real explanation of how the passions that shape the world in which we try and provide food security to everybody, the passions of insurgency, of violence, the passions that lead to movements of refugees, the passions of ethnic tension, all of these passions that play out so very much in the Middle East. We have had a look at the world, the tapestry behind it in the next presentation. But I want to go back and say that only a person with real passions could deal with the picture that we had in the first panel. And Mahmoud is a person of very real passions. His first passion is a consummate, deep knowledge and care and love for plants and the plant world and what it can do. As a breeder, as a plant protector, as an enemy of pests that have been around for as long as humanity. It is a deep passion which I think is right within his soul. The second one is that although he's a citizen of the world, at home in universities in California and conferences around the world, in the corridors of power, in the FAO in Rome, he's deeply rooted in his region, in that frustrating, annoying, fascinating, fabulous, upsetting, terrifying, wonderful world of the Middle East. Whether you're talking about the Maghreb, the Mashraq, the Levant, the Gulf, he is well rooted in that, and it's enabled him to master the complexities of working and living in that world, much to his benefit, but also particularly that of ICARDA. ICARDA, the International Center on Agricultural Research in the dryland areas. I chaired it for a while, and I'm pleased to say that his third passion that I want to talk about is ICARDA itself. He was a junior officer there, a medium officer there. He was the Director General, and I can't think of anybody better than to reflect on how research might be part of the answers to really addressing some of the negative, contending, and difficult passions that we heard about. So, my dear friend, Mahmoud, you have the floor.
Thank you, Maggie, for this introduction. It's certainly a pleasure and honor for me to address such a distinguished audience. And I would like to thank Ambassador Quinn and the Secretariat of the World Food Prize for this opportunity. I will go very quickly. I budgeted 15 minutes, so I should get the 15 minutes, I hope. Okay, what I'm going to do, I'm going to introduce you briefly to ICARDA. Then I will also talk about how did we manage to cope with the tragic situation in Syria, our host country, and then how the investment in agriculture research can help the conflict and post-conflict countries in coping with the tragedies they have been facing. Of course, ICARDA is one of the 15 CGIAR centers with the strategic level outputs of reducing rural poverty, improving food security, improving nutrition and health, and contribute to sustainable management of natural resources. Our vision in ICARDA is to improve livelihood of the resource poor in dry areas, and we do this through research and partnership to achieve sustainable increase in agricultural productivity and income while ensuring the efficient and more equitable and use and conservation of natural resources. Our geographical mandate is non-tropical dry areas, but we focus on the Middle East and North Africa. Of course, the dry areas are vast. They constitute about 40% of the world's surface, and they are the home of about 2.5 billion people, and they are the home of the poor of the world. 16% of the population live in chronic poverty, mostly in marginal areas. ICARDA is the only center that works in non-tropical dry areas compared to other sister centers which work in different parts of the world. Now, dry areas, as you know, they are fragile ecosystems. Physical water scarcity is a clear characteristic. Rapid natural resource degradation and desertification is another one. Another challenge is the groundwater depletion, and then drought is becoming a common phenomenon as a result of the serious climate change implications. Now, of course, the other challenge that we have, that we live in a politically volatile region, and we know very well, this is from IFPRI studies, that political security as well as financial and economic stability are critical for food security. And of course, our part of the world, in the Middle East particularly, and North Africa, face civil wars and conflicts. Now, ICARDA headquarters was established in 1977, built on the Ford Foundation Arid Land Development Program, with about 1,000 hectares, with 630 staff members before we left Aleppo, coming out of 43 nationalities. We do have a substation in Lebanon. These slides quickly to show you the beautiful landscape and the research station that we really have in Syria before the tragic developments. This is our board chair at that time, Dr. Maggie Catley-Carlson, inaugurating the, I would say, the Borlaug and Havener Wheat Improvement Center. This is the biosafety facility that we have to work on genetic transformation. We have a beautiful labs, very nice fields, and I want to say ICARDA was really working to enhance food security in a region that is, I would say, the highest food deficit region in the world. Now, of course, this is the sheep unit that we have. We work on small ruminants, and this is the destruction after the, I would say, 2012. The situation deteriorated in Syria in March 2011 in the south, but it did not come to the north up till July 2012. This is the labs of the sheep unit, which was really, I would say, completely destroyed. Fortunately, still the main buildings are still intact. This is how the machinery was treated, and this is really the gene bank, which by a miracle is still operational 2 months ago. In this gene bank, we have large, I would say, germplasm collections. I will talk later. The first thing that we did, we developed a contingency plan, which we implemented in 2011 and 2012. And this contingency plan, we have to save all our data, including the Oracle database that we have in a cloud in California. We transferred the staff and their families to safe areas to continue implementing about 120 projects that we have outside Syria. The countries Morocco, Tunisia, Egypt, Ethiopia, Jordan, Lebanon, and Turkey hosted our colleagues, and we really appreciate that. The gene bank in ICARDA is very valuable simply because it has the best, I would say, land races and wild relatives from 4 major regions of diversity: the Fertile Crescent, the Abyssinian Plateau in Ethiopia, North Africa, Southern Europe, and Central Asia. Our gene bank holding, which is still in Syria, is 141,000 accessions, and we have currently 154. We did decentralize our gene bank. 80% of our germplasm is already served or saved in Svalbard in Norway. This is how our germplasm is distributed all over the world, and these are the countries that benefit from the distribution. About 20,000 accessions are distributed on the average globally. We won a Gregor Mendel Award for the ICARDA efforts in protecting the gene bank collection in Syria. Coming back to the decentralization, so what we did at the beginning, we did temporary relocation without much rationalization of the relocation. And then we did have a decentralization strategy which was implemented in 2013 and 2016, and we established 3 major hubs. Lebanon became our, I would say, temporary headquarters because we did have a host country agreement in 1977 with Lebanon. But the civil war in Lebanon made us go to Syria, and ironically, the civil war in Syria drove us back to Lebanon. And the platforms are in Morocco on rain-fed cereal-based system, in Ethiopia on mixed integrated crop livestock system, and in India on food legumes. We have thematic research locations, Egypt for high input irrigated agriculture, in Turkey, Iran, and Central Asia highlands for winter wheat with our sister center Summit, and winter barley, and the highland program in Iran. In Izmir, Turkey, we do have the Syria Rust Research Regional Center, and in Sudan, we work on heat tolerance. This is the current setup that we have on locating the staff. This is the most recent relocation of the staff. We are doing some more consolidation this year in order to make sure that we are effectively using our resources in the center. Now, let me come to the most important part of my presentation, rebuilding agriculture in conflict-affected and post-conflict countries and countries with fragile economies. We have been doing that over many years, and I want to mention several countries we worked in, including Afghanistan, including Iraq, Syria, Yemen, Somalia, Egypt, which is economically fragile, as you know, and Libya. And this is the hypothesis. I'm sure Dr. Per Anderson remembers this when he presented that in ICARDA in 2009. At that time, he was thinking about sub-Saharan African countries. The cost of doing nothing to those countries, and the hypothesis that technological, institutional, and policy change in agriculture system will contribute to food security, sustainable resource use, employment, economic growth, and reduced poverty. And this will be reducing the underlying causes of conflict, migration, and extremism, which is really very, very true, and it is reflected in the Arab world these days. This shows the wheat production in Syria before and after. And I want to show you that Syria was an importing country, and in 2004, 2006, it became an exporting country of wheat. But because of the drought and the war, look how wheat production has dropped. These are the factors that contributed to this increase, and we used this in a project in 10 Arab countries. This is recent, between 2010 and 2015, and the 10 Arab countries, including Egypt, Jordan, Morocco, Palestine, Sudan, Syria, Tunisia, and Yemen, and the average increase in productivity across these countries in whole provinces, not with a farmer, was 28%, and the maximum increase was 75%. I want to mention that this is the example in Sudan. In the Jazeera scheme, the increase was 43 to 163, higher than the farmer's average, while in the northern state, 27 to 79%. The other interesting, I would say, achievement of this project is that producing more with less in Egypt, using the broad-bed farrow and a whole package of wheat, including drought tolerance varieties. We reduced applied water by 30%, increased yield by 25%, reduced seed rate by 50%, and increased water use efficiency by more than 70%. And this was adopted in 6 years on about 70,000 acres, and now the Egyptian government is planning to expand that to 1.8 million acres, or about 730,000 hectares by the year 2018. The other very interesting work is the work on salinity. This is supported by Australia, USA, and Italy. Salinity is affecting 50% of the irrigated areas in Iraq. And as a result of an integrated approach to cope with salinity at the regional and watershed level, at the irrigation district level and field scale, we manage salinity through regional irrigation and drainage management, reclamation, drainage and salt extraction, as well as living with salinity using drought-tolerant varieties, salt-tolerant varieties, as well as soil management and water management. And look at this picture. This is the salinity management. Look at the whole, I would say, state of Dujaila in April 1984, in April 2003, and in April 2014. You can see how we reversed the land degradation in vast areas as a result of this integrated approach. The other work that we have is Afghanistan, where we are working on crop improvement and seed production, natural resource management, small ruminant production, capacity development, and entrepreneurship. We are working in 8 provinces in Afghanistan, and we have released several varieties in wheat, barley, chickpea, and lentil, and we have what we call village-based seed enterprises in 38 villages to produce high-quality seed, and 2 of those are run by women, which is very interesting. The other aspects is mint, which was really introduced to cope with poppy production. This mint, the good thing about mint, you can distill that to produce oil and water mint, and the woman can play a big role there. This is His Excellency, the Minister, visiting that. This is a project supported by DFID. The other one is saffron, which is also very important production for the women. Again, protected agriculture is also another important introduction to cope with the poppies production. This is conservation agriculture, which is very important for multiple cropping and capacity building in those countries. This is the last 5 years. How much capacity development we did in those countries. In Afghanistan, Egypt, Iraq, you see, is the highest. Libya, Syria is among the highest, Tunisia, and Yemen. And this is the most interesting slide, where you see that females in the training in the country in Afghanistan are more than males. Similarly for the field days, where you see more females than males. Now, the conclusion, no security on empty stomachs. And this is Dr. Norman Borlaug, principle. And I want really to conclude by acknowledging and expressing appreciation for the valuable support of all the national partners, particularly Syria as a host country, Egypt, Ethiopia, Lebanon, Jordan, India, Morocco, Sudan, and Turkey, and our sister center, ILRI, which hosted our livestock people. Of course, we also appreciate all the donors, particularly the CGIAR, the Arab and Kuwaiti Fund, who supported ICARDA at this difficult time in its history to continue its noble mission in dry areas. Let me close by saying supporting research for sustainable development in conflict and post-conflict countries will secure better future for younger generation. I'm running quickly because of the time. Otherwise, I would have been much more relaxed with the 15 minutes. Thank you.
Okay, we're doing a two-way process here. I'm Gordon Conway, and as you can tell by my accent, I'm a Brit. And I want you to know I'm a good Brit. I voted to remain in the European Union. See, Ken? the first applause of this conference, not at the end, but during it. And the reason, of course, is quite straightforward. The importance of the European Union is it brings together a range of different nations with different qualities, with different cultures and different experiences. And the challenge is to get all those people to work together. And that's what we need in the world. We need those kind of associations to go forward. Next, please. Oh, I've got to do it myself. Well, I've done it myself. Can you do the next one? There you are. I always start with this picture. It reminds me of what Schunever has been doing. You've got all these crises in the world. And every time I put it up, nearly all the crises are getting worse. Actually, not food security, but nearly all the other crises are getting worse. And more important, they're increasingly interconnected in the ways that we heard about just now. And what is really actually scary is that nobody's in charge. Nobody's overseeing all of this to try and make it work. Although maybe the national intelligence agencies are trying to do that, which is good. The way we do it is to start with something like food security and then analyze out to the other crises. So, most important of all, next please, is global warming. Just in case there's anybody in this audience who doesn't think the world is warming, just look at that. What is interesting is the red bars are all El Nino years. And I expect some of you have heard people say, well, it's all, last year's heat was just due to El Nino. It wasn't just due to El Nino. It was partly due to El Nino. But there was global warming on top. And that's the nature of climate change. We're getting phenomena which are getting worse because you add to it. And the other point is land degradation, which we heard about earlier on. This is a surrogate for that, it's soil degradation. These are the areas of soil erosion in the world, serious soil erosion in the world. About a quarter of all of sub-Saharan Africa is seriously degraded. And then finally, we've got conflict. And we have here three speakers who have experience from different parts of this map. Mahmoud Solh, who you've just heard speak, Director General of the International Center for Agricultural Research in dry areas, up in that area in Syria and Iraq, but also Egypt, Libya, and elsewhere in dry areas in Pakistan. And then we have Ambassador Patricia Haslach, who I'm delighted to, I'm really pleased that I've got an ambassador on my panel. These other panels had lots of ambassadors, but I've got a really, really great ambassador here, who reminded me that we met many years ago. She has had a distinguished career in the State Department. One of her most difficult jobs was being the coordinator of the transition in Iraq, of bringing the US combat forces out. But most recently, and why we want to hear her talk particularly, is that she's been ambassador to Ethiopia. And then it's gone, and it doesn't go back. And then we have from Nigeria, we have Monica Maguru, who is a farmer. She farms about 5 acres of land in Kaduna province, which is sort of northwest in Nigeria. She is a food hero. I like to think of her as a food heroine, actually, but she's called a food hero. And she is now running a whole lot of activities with all her neighbors, and we want to hear about her too. So we've got in here a director of research, we've got an ambassador, and we've got a farmer. And the idea is to try and get them all to talk and talk to each other so we can go forward. Okay, that's enough of the slides. What I want to do, I don't think there's an off button. Yes, there is an off button. I want to start with you, Mahmoud, and then the others will talk to them later on. That was a fascinating story. It's a very depressing story in some respects, but it's also got some kind of lessons to be learned. And that's what I want the theme of this session to be. What are the lessons that we learn from all these situations? And I've got a number of questions I want to ask you. First of all, as you know, I live in Western Europe, and there are great streams of people, many of them coming from Syria and Iraq and Afghanistan and so on. And we tend to see them as people who are fleeing conflict. Is that correct? Is that the right way to say it?
Let me tell you, first of all, lots of those that really are migrating to Europe and other parts of the world are coming from very secure areas. Actually, probably the majority. The problem, very frankly, is poverty, unemployment, food insecurity. Those people want to feed their children, even if they are not threatened through, the conflict. And therefore, you have seen them, going with their children over the sea, and they are putting themselves in danger. So I want to mention lots of this migration stems from lack of opportunities in their home country. And when we think about who are those that migrate, those who are dynamic, who are willing to take the risk, and if they have opportunities back home, they will not do that, be sure. So I think the problem comes back to the fact that no action has been made on sustainable development, particularly in rural areas, to help those people stick to their land and not really risk themselves and their children and their wives and so forth. So I want really to emphasize this point. Lots of people think it's only a conflict issue. It is not a conflict issue. Lots of it is poverty, lots of it is unemployment, and lack of opportunity for those people.
And I think it's true to say that you think that food security, achieving food security, is a key.
Is a key, yeah, for sure. And that's why, coming back, of course, again, with the crisis in 2008 about the increase in food prices, this is when people started thinking about food security in our part of the world. Lots of countries were not putting agriculture as a priority. And after the prices, and particularly ministries of planning and finance, starting to pay the big bills for the food imports, then they start thinking about investing in agriculture. And it was too late in many of those countries. And this is what I really wanted to say. So agriculture, besides the infrastructure support that is needed, as the World Bank has been always supporting, agriculture is a primary area for investment for sustainable development. And people think it contributes in some countries very little to GDP, but in reality they forget that it triggers many other services, like transport, agribusiness, and you name it. But the problem that we have, they look at the production dimension without looking at what is really supporting this production outside the agriculture fields.
And whose responsibility is it to do a better job? Is it
think
donors? I mean, is it?
No, I think governments, clearly governments. I don't want to really, let me tell you, but at the same time, those countries that are supporting those governments should really, I don't want to say force them, but certainly put a conditional support that they really invest more in agriculture and in rural development and so forth. So I think the primary responsibility lies with the national governments, and of course, those countries that support those governments in different ways should certainly look for more sustainable development in the rural areas in particular.
You gave a very good example of work to reduce salinity damage.
Yeah.
I was fascinated by that.
It is.
You've done that from the 1990s right the way through to
This is a
2014.
very long-term investment. First of all, it is much more difficult to reverse degradation than preventing degradation. You see?
Right.
So if you prevent degradation from the very beginning, most of the salinity problem, whether it is in the Delta in Egypt, whether it is in Iraq or other parts of the world, it is because of faulty irrigation or faulty practices. If you really from the beginning take that into consideration, you will not really be able to reach that stage. The other big problem in the Middle East and North Africa is the excessive pumping of the water, of the shallow water aquifers, where as you really deplete those shallow water aquifers, the water quality deteriorates and brings salinity up. And this is the problem. So we come back to a big sustainability dimension, which we talk about intensification of agriculture. If we do not do that in a sustainable manner, we will be really ending up with no production at the end.
But you did this in regions that were subject to conflict. I mean, how did you manage to go forward in this way with conflict going on around
Let me tell you, we certainly rely a lot on our national partners. What you really see is not what ICARDA did. What you really see is what our national partner did in support of it. For example, in Afghanistan currently, ICARDA has 93 staff members. Only 5 of those are expatriates. The rest are local people. And what you really see here, I still believe it is so important to enhance the capacity building, because the future is really for the nationals to take responsibility to proceed and look at implement the development programs themselves, not outsiders to come. And of course, they can help, but this is sort of a temporary help. So I think capacity building, to me, is so critical in those countries.
And that is happening now in Iraq.
In Iraq,
now,
you've seen in Iraq, we have, in the last 5 years, about 1,200, between scientists and technicians were trained, and I want here to commend the support coming from ACR in Australia, from USAID and Italy. This is clear here. In Afghanistan also, we have support coming from IFAD, ACR, from USAID, and we have from FAO as well, and DFID as well. So I think this is where I believe the sustainability dimension comes, from enhancing the capacity of those colleagues and put them, again, the success of the project is whether this project impact can continue beyond that project. And if it's going to end by the time the project ends, then you failed completely. This is what I wanted really to emphasize. Okay. And this is what we, not only ICARDA and the CG, we do. We work together with our national partners in order to bring them up to a level where they can proceed themselves without the, I would say, contribution from us.
Well, you've done a terrific job, and I want to congratulate you on that. Just final question is on climate change. Mm-hmm. I mean, the beginning of the Arab Spring in Tunisia, there was some degree of drought, I think, at that time.
Let me tell you, the drought started in 2007, 2008 in West Asia. And it continued for the coming, I would say, 4 or 5 years consecutively. And this has never happened before. We used to get 1 year of drought every 10 years. So lots of migration took place in Syria and in Iraq and lots of places from rural areas to the cities. And in the cities, as was mentioned by the earlier panelists, there wasn't enough employment opportunity to support those, and this is where the migration then went overseas. And therefore, drought played a very important role. And one thing I want to mention, based on the scenarios for climate change, the Middle East and North Africa with Southern Europe, will be losing in the coming 100 years 15 to 50% of the precipitation, which is already, we have a scarce situation. So the situation is the worst in the dry areas when it comes to climate change, plus the heat tolerance. The heat is a very big problem, and it shortens the life cycle, and it will certainly reduce the production drastically.
Okay, we'll come back and talk about lessons in a moment, but let me move on now to you, Patricia, and give you a chance to say some words.
Well, first of all, Gordon, why don't I start off by saying how we met. I was working on the Feed the Future initiative, and our first group of panelists, if you sat through the first group of ambassadors and then the second group of panelists, everyone's talking about the need to take leadership, the need to recognize issues of the importance of food, the importance of food security. And I do think that under President Obama, there has been a very concerted effort to take food security seriously, to put resources behind it. And then in July, I think one of the few things that got bipartisan support in the US Congress was the Global Food Security Act was passed. So these are very, very important. And why is this important? I started my career with the Department of Agriculture working on humanitarian food assistance, the PL 480, if you all remember that way back when. And I worked on the Ethiopian drought of the mid-1980s. And in those days, hundreds and thousands of people perished because of that drought. And there were many reasons for it. It was a drought, but it was also poor governance and a whole series of actions. And so Ethiopia in the 1990s, when the current government came into power, decided that they no longer wanted to be connected with Ethiopia equals drought. So they took it very seriously, working with the donor community, and then mainly working through USAID and our Department of Agriculture through the Feed the Future initiative and some of our other programs. We really set the stage on trying to improve the situation there. We couldn't have done it, I really emphasize this, without a committed partner like Ethiopia, a government very committed to agriculture. I didn't realize they had also were housing some of your organization, but the amount of resources, the amount of commitment that they put into this. So when the current drought came around, and this is an El Nino affected drought, this is a climate change affected drought, this is not a conflict drought, unlike South Sudan and Yemen, and well, Yemen also has had some drought as well, but it was not conflict induced. The donor community and the United States taking the lead at the request, by the way, of the Ethiopian government that we would take the lead, stepped in very quickly and averted a famine. The estimate was 10 million people were at risk of starvation, on top of 8 million people every year that still receive support, pastoralists who receive support through, by our government, by the UK and other governments to feed the people. Putting in place programs over the years, I went there in 2010, programs, irrigation programs addressing pastoralist livelihoods, addressing women in agriculture, addressing all sorts of issues. So they really laid the foundation to deal with the current drought. By the way, the drought is, of course, turned to the flip side, La Nina. That almost always happens. You get the drought, and then these poor areas get afflicted by floods. They are addressing it. Again, they're addressing it in part because of their own actions, but I think because the international community, because the United States government takes it seriously. We recognize the food security ramifications. They are a very important ally for us in the Horn of Africa, surrounded by some pretty unstable countries, Yemen across the water, Somalia, South Sudan to the west. So very, very important for our security, very important for global security, and for issues like migration. We could add on top of the migrants already going into Europe, many hundreds of thousands of Ethiopians, in fact, if this drought had not been addressed. But many, many more challenges still face us because Ethiopia is affected by a severe drought pretty much every 6 years, and every drought we're now seeing is becoming progressively worse, and the issues that are underlying that really need to be addressed here are issues like land tenure, land ownership. The land is controlled by the government. It is currently, in fact, leading to some disruptions, some regional discontent related to land policies, corruption surrounding land. Water issues, these are the challenges that are going to have to be addressed, or else we're going to be in the same situation 4 years from now, 6 years from now, issues related to salinity, although they don't really do much by way of irrigation. So I'm saying, you know, we've sort of gotten through this one, but not just in Ethiopia, you know, then the drought, El Nino drought spread down to South Africa and to the southern parts of Africa. And this is a continent where has a lot of rich resources, including human resources like women farmers. These are the issues that we are going to have to address, but we need to have good partnership with the government. You cannot do this without the support of a government that is committed to making those serious changes, to putting their own resources into solving their problems.
But we've got a problem in Ethiopia at the moment.
Yes.
There's a state of emergency.
Yes.
And there's a degree of conflict between two different groups, is that right?
Well, there's a couple different reasons for the conflict was sort of ignited by issues related to land. Farmers' land around the capital of Addis Ababa being sold off and then resold at much higher prices to businesses and things. And this was the proximate cause for discontent, but it was getting at governance issues. It was getting at lack of job opportunities. They have, like many countries in the world, a very large youth population, becoming increasingly better educated, but without the job opportunities are out there. But I would really say the whole issue surrounding land ownership, land tenure, and some of our programs have the U.S., the Germans, and others have worked on it, at least getting land certified. People don't even have a piece of paper that says they have a right to be farming on a particular piece of land.
So what are the steps with land? First of all is to make sure that the boundaries of the land are clearly defined. Another is do you have to use an indigenous system or of land tenure, or what kind of is the ideal system to have?
Well, it is pretty rudimentary because, of course, there's not a lot of paper and documents. But first, you certify. The second is that the farmer's then able to use the land to, take out loans to buy fertilizer and inputs. But I think the other issue here is just the size of the plots. They're so small that it's very, very difficult to really get any kind of economies of scale on tiny little hectares of land.
And that's a consequence of an inheritance system?
That's a consequence of a government policy that's been in place since the time of the emperor.
Yeah. I mean, one of the lessons, it seems to me, that you've got is that in this, is that you were able to be effective. I mean, when I say you, I mean the U.S. government in its work in Ethiopia, because you had a genuine partnership with the Ethiopian government.
Correct.
They asked you to come and help with this. Is that right?
Well, the partners had already been working there, working with pastoralists, working with, working in the agriculture sector, working on issues of nutrition. So already in place, in fact, helping through the they have a public food distribution system, which the donors helped the government set up. So they had already in place a mechanism to feed people. What the current drought, it was really bringing in emergency food, so you really had to sort of scale up that whole entire process.
And you have an agriculture, in Ethiopia there's an agricultural transformation agency,
Yes,
isn't there?
yes, and we've been supporting it through USAID.
Which it's about unique. I'm not sure it's entirely unique, but it's unique in the sense that it cuts across all the ministries that have an interest in agriculture, but it's chaired by the Prime Minister, is that right?
Well, it's under the Ministry of Agriculture, but the Prime Minister is directly overseeing the Ag Transformation Agency, which we support, the Gates Foundation supports, and others.
Yeah.
What they're doing, though, Gordon, is they're not really focusing on issues of land tenure, or they're focusing more on going from cattle to the livestock slaughtering and exporting meat, honey, coffee, all of the different other crops that Ethiopia produces. But it's not addressing, I think, some of the underlying issues.
Because I know from my experience in many African countries is that when I go there and I meet the Minister of Agriculture, the minister usually says to me, "Are you going to meet the president?" And I say, "Yes." And we say, "Can you tell him this? You know,
In this
would
case,
you
it's
mind
the
passing
prime
this
minister.
message on?"
Yes, yes, yes.
But having the Prime Minister really involved in agriculture
Yes.
is absolutely crucial, isn't it?
Yeah. Yes, it absolutely is. And in fact, the deputy prime minister, there were two deputy prime ministers, was charged actually with overseeing the whole drought relief efforts. And we would see him periodically. And sometimes you'd have to say, we need your help. Getting, all the food had to come through the port of Djibouti. Anytime a bottleneck was identified, sometimes a certain area did not want the implementing partners. By the way, let me just add, I forgot the implementing partners. My goodness, if it weren't for Save the Children and all of our implementing partners, they are the Irish NGO Goal and others. They are the ones that are actually on the ground feeding people, feeding children. The other was getting in supplementary foods for children that were at real risk of slipping into severe malnutrition.
But it is important that you've got powerful ministers of agriculture. I don't know whether,
Well, I think it's a little bit.
I don't know whether
I think
Dr. Akin is here.
No, that's
I just-
critical.
No, he's not here.
But the Ministry of Agriculture in Ethiopia is more important than the Ministry of Energy. So it's one of the
Okay.
exceptions.
Okay, good. Let's move on now. Monica, welcome here. We're delighted you've come all this way from Kaduna in Nigeria. We'd like you to say a little bit about your farm now and what you do, and then we can start to talk about some of the challenges you face.
Can I
Please.
start?
Yes, of course you can.
Okay. I thank you, Dr. Conway, for allowing me to speak today in 2016 World Food Prize Program. I am Monica Joshua Maigari from Kaduna State, Nigeria, a small-scale farmer. I farm crops like rice, beans, yams, soya beans, and poultry. With the trainings I have received, I process or I add value chain to some of the crops I produce. And also, I am a leader of the women in our community. I became the female food hero through Oxfam's program. They are trying to encourage females to go into agriculture. So that is why they have introduced this program, Female Food Hero, in Nigeria. So I succeeded. And many women have seen my success and have gone into agriculture too, because of the encouragement Oxfam in Nigeria and America are giving. As a female farmer, we face a lot of challenges. One is the climate change, which my colleagues have discussed about, and I'm happy about it, because in a map I saw Nigeria is seriously affected. I, in particular, as you heard, I have up to 5 hectares of land, but more than 1 hectare of land which I cultivated rice. I cannot harvest even a cup of rice as of today. The rains came earlier, around March, but at a time, it comes not in good time. To spend 2 weeks, 3 weeks before the rain comes, and most of the crops are bad. So we will not harvest anything. Women are the ones in the farm in Nigeria. they are the ones that worked very hard on the farms, coupled with their own house work. Because of that, we have a lot of food problems. Many families hardly take a meal, or if they would do one meal in a day. I think my colleagues here from Oxfam can bear me witness. I take maybe 2 meals in a day. I've come here to see that you eat surplus. So I'm also trying to eat much too, but I cannot because I'm not used to. And I'm one of those that are even better off. Just as I said, many hardly take a meal a day. That is on the climate change. It started about 3 years in a region in, I think, Kaduna State. We have suffered a lot of this climate change. Many of our crops do not grow well. Then there is another problem again, which is what they have been saying, pastoral conflict with farmers. We suffer a lot in Kaduna State. I think in the whole country, you've heard about maybe Boko Haram in the northeast, which they have said. Many of the crops are being destroyed. Farmers are afraid to go to the land because of these terrorists. They attack farmers in the farms. And the pastoralists, too, in our community. Just September, we are in October now. About 5 communities were being attacked by these pastoralists, and the people are being displaced. The government of Kaduna State is doing nothing because we are southern part of Kaduna. They don't say anything about it. And women and children are left widows and orphans. Many of the men have been killed. Anyone that goes to the farm will be killed by these pastoralists because they find out that our land is very fertile. They want to use the part of the land to rear their own cattle. So these are some of the challenges. And another challenge is on these modern techniques of farming. We don't have them, especially the women. We are still using the local methods of farming, holding our hoes to do the farming. And if you want to cultivate about 1 hectare or 5, it will be tedious. That will be done with the local hand. We don't have these tractors. I think I saw some simple tractors being displayed today. If we can have such tractors, I think it will help us to improve in the food cultivation. Just as I said, many women go to the farm. It is the farm produce they get in order to cater for their children, pay school fees, medical care, and other things. But they don't have the capacity to cultivate well. I, as a leader, have tried from the training I have been receiving to try to educate them on how to get maybe improved seeds, apply fertilizer at the right time, do the weeding at the right time. But we have challenges too. With the fertilizer, there is no quality fertilizer that is sold in the market. You spend money to buy the fertilizer, but if you apply on the crop, no change. So the fertilizer is not good at all. And we also have challenges on like planters. we use the hand or the leg to plant. So we also need such things for improvement in cultivating our crops. So we need to be helped, if possible.
That's wonderful. Let me just ask you about the climate change. Is as I understand it, the problem is that the rains are coming late or not coming at all. And sometimes there's rain. This year you had rain in March, is that right? And that destroyed the crop. It was the wrong time.
It didn't. We saw that the rains will continue, but at a time it stopped.
Okay. And so you got to, now, what is that you can do to cope with that? What kind of things can you do to cope with that kind of change?
I think if we can get seeds, improved seeds,
Right.
that are of shorter periods.
Right. Right.
Like the rice, maybe we get improved rice that doesn't need much rain.
Yeah.
Okay. We have another challenge again, like this striga.
Yes.
We need seeds that will be striga resistance.
But those are available now, aren't they? I mean, it's available. You can get striga seed, and you can get short maturing varieties. What's the difficulty for you to get those seeds?
We cannot, I don't know, we don't have maybe extension workers that will train us or direct us on where to get these improved seeds and striga resistant seeds.
You told me that if you wanted good fertilizer, you actually had to go to the big factory to get it.
Yes,
right?
Definitely.
And how, I mean, the big factory will sell you a small amount of fertilizer if you go there?
No, they don't sell small amount. You have to buy about a truck.
Okay.
And the women will not have money to purchase that. You only buy from the traders, or the input dealers.
And when you've got a harvest, how easy is it to sell it?
If we get the harvest, we sell it immediately because we have no storage facilities. And we sell it at a giveaway price. Because if we try to keep it, it gets spoiled because we don't have proper storage facilities. We don't have preservatives, or what do you call them? Where to preserve these foods, especially vegetables. Many of the women grow tomatoes, and you know tomatoes cannot stay long. So it needs to be preserved or stored properly.
Yeah. If you could get a loan, let's say you could get a loan from the bank, what would you use it for?
If I get a loan?
I'm not promising it, I'm just saying if you could get it.
Okay. In case we get a loan, that will help us to expand our farm. Maybe if the loan is much, we go and even buy half of a truck of fertilizer from the company. I think they are willing to give half of the truck. That is about 300 bags.
But you have some laborers working on your farm now. I mean, it's only 5 acres, but you've got laborers working
I
there.
cannot work alone in the farm. I
But
have
would you
laborers.
hire more laborers?
Yes, I
Or
will.
would you
I
buy
will.
more machines, or what would you do with the
I
loan?
will buy also a machine. Like the tractor I saw, I even collected a picture.
In Southeast Asia, they call them the two-wheel tractors. And we need lots of those in Africa.
Yes.
And factories to make them.
Okay.
I'm
And we
going to
have-
find myself committed to doing all these things.
I have another challenge is on the loan you made mention of. Women are not given loans because of the hard conditions given. They will say, give collateral. If you have the collateral, you maybe 1 million, they say give collateral of 100. I will use the 100 to go and farm, but we don't have. And also women are denied land. We don't have land. They will say, show your piece of land, whereas women do not have lands.
So, Patricia, would you like to make a comment or ask a question?
This is not just Nigeria. This is throughout sub-Saharan Africa. What she's talking about, the difficulty in women in farming. And so, in fact, what we've tried to do is give some women like her dairy cattle. I'm not promising, but dairy cattle. And these types of programs, but common problems that need to be addressed, yes.
But Mahmoud, is this,
I
if
think
you were trying to help her, what would
yeah.
you do?
You see, I think the biggest bottleneck is the technology transfer to farmers. Lots of the technology are available on the shelf, but they don't find their way to the farmers. What the distinguished farmer indicated that she is, yes, we know that there are short season varieties. We know that there are striga resistance, but she doesn't get them. You see, this is the problem. This is the biggest bottleneck we have. Effective extension in a broad sense, not in the old narrow sense with an extension agent with a bicycle or a motorcycle would have no information to extend. And now with the media that we have, audiovisuals, even we can tell farmers now on the mobile want to do supplemental irrigation, depending on the weather conditions. So I think we really have to think much broader in helping the farmer to adopt technology. Farmers are very smart, no doubt about it, smarter than many of us scientists. And if you give them the right technology, they will use it very well. We have very good experience in Egypt, in Tunisia, in Sudan, in many countries, Ethiopia as well, where when the technology is available, things really go up. Ethiopia is a very good example. We have been working with Ethiopia for 35 years in ICARDA, or even 40 years. The largest impact came in the last 10 or 12 years when the government put agriculture as a priority. Then this is how we really, our research impact was the maximum. But, if you are really working with a government doesn't care for agriculture, you are really swimming against the stream. And this is the problem that we have. So I agree with you fully. You need really more extension service to help you and provide you. I think the best way to help farmers is to provide them services, rather than subsidize and so forth.
Monica, you have a mobile phone?
Yes, I do.
Yeah.
Silly question.
Yeah.
Really silly question. 600 million mobile phones in Africa, right? Well, you don't know that, but I mean, that's 600 million. So you're bound to have a mobile phone. Now, what do you use it for?
To receive calls and make calls.
And who are you talking to on your mobile? I'm not being inquisitive, but I mean, what kind of, do you use it for social reasons or because of your farm?
I use it for my farm, and just when I came here, I had to communicate to my people because there was a project that to be carried out. But I think because of my absence, they said they should suspend.
Oh.
Yes, so it helps
To have it.
the phone.
But do you
Helps.
get information from, do you get the information from your phone? Do you get subsidies for your fertilizer on the phone? The e-wallet? No.
Market prices for the crops?
You mean markets?
Yeah, what the crops are selling for. in the
What
market.
information do you get on your phone that's useful?
Okay. We just sell them locally. We just ask those that went to the market, how much is the food price at that period? But I don't use my phone to communicate on food price.
Good. I know we've got another group that's going to come up. So I think we ought to finish now. I just want to thank these panelists enormously. I think we've ended up on a relatively optimistic note.
We started.
You know, we know a lot in terms of technology. We know a lot in terms of science about how you get food security. We even know how you get the economies right to get food security. But what is crucially important, at least for Africa, is that the future of food security rests upon people like Monica. 80% of the farmers in Africa are like Monica. In fact, many of them have got much less land than she has. They've only got about 1 hectare of land, or maybe 2 hectares of land, not as much as she has. And if she can do what she can do, then lots of other Africans can do it. And if they get the right kind of help from people like yourself, Mahmoud, in your work on research, and people like you, Patricia, in the way that you can influence policies, then I think we can be hopeful and we can be relatively optimistic. I'd like to end on that note, if you don't mind. Thank you very much.
Wow. Gordon, wonderful job. Mahmoud, thank you. That's it. Ambassador Haslach, so that's terrific. So we've had, oh, yes.